February 2nd, 1959. The desolate, snow-covered slopes of syakhl, Dead Mountain in the local Mansi language, in the northern Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. 9 experienced ski hikers, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, had embarked on an ambitious expedition, a Category 3 trek, the most difficult rating. Their goal? To reach Mount Oterten, but they never returned. What began as a routine search and rescue mission quickly devolved into one of the most chilling and inexplicable mysteries of the 20th century. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident, where 9 young, fit adventurers met an unspeakable end, leaving behind a scene of terror that defied all logic, sparking decades of speculation, conspiracy theories, and haunting questions that echo through the icy peaks to this very day. The group was comprised of 8 men and 2 women, all students or graduates of the Ural Polytechnical Institute. One member, Yuri Yudin, fell ill early in the expedition and had to turn back, a decision that inadvertently saved his life and left him as the sole survivor to tell the tale of their initial journey. The remaining 9 pressed on, their spirits high, meticulously documenting their trek with diaries and photographs. Their last entry, dated February 1st, described setting up camp on the eastern slope of syakhl, preparing for what they believed would be just another cold night in the wilderness. The tent was pitched on the open slope, exposed to the biting winds, a choice that seemed unusual for such experienced mountaineers. This seemingly minor detail would become a critical piece of the puzzle, a decision that foreshadowed the horror to come. When the group failed to send a telegram by February 12th as planned, their families and the institute grew concerned. A search party was dispatched, and on February 26th, they made a horrific discovery. Their tent was found on syakhl, partially collapsed and, most disturbingly, slashed open from the inside. Inside, investigators found all their belongings, clothes, food, and equipment, suggesting the hikers had fled in extreme haste, leaving behind vital provisions in sub-zero temperatures. What could have driven 9 experienced hikers to cut their way out of their tent and flee into the deadly cold, dressed only in their nightclothes or partial attire? This single piece of evidence immediately plunged the case into the realm of the bizarre and the inexplicable, challenging any rational explanation. Following the tent, investigators found a trail of footprints belonging to 8 or 9 people, leading away from the campsite towards the edge of a nearby forest about a mile downhill. The footprints indicated that some were bare, some in socks, and some wearing only one boot. The trail ended abruptly at the forest's edge, near a large cedar tree, where the first 2 bodies were found. Yuri Krivonichenko and Yuri Doroshenko, both only partially clothed, were lying near the remains of a small campfire. Their hands showed signs of defensive wounds, and their clothing had small burns. Their discovery deepened the mystery. Why were they so far from the tent, so underdressed, and why had they tried to light a fire in such an exposed state? It was a scene of desperation and terror, pointing to an unseen threat that drove them from their shelter. Over the next few months, the remaining bodies were found in stages. The next 3, Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin, were discovered between the cedar tree and the tent, seemingly trying to make their way back towards the camp. Dyatlov was found clutching a small branch. Kolmogorova had severe facial injuries, and Slobodin had a fractured skull. Their postures suggested they had been attempting to crawl back, overcome by hypothermia, but the injuries, particularly Slobodin's, hinted at something far more sinister than just exposure to the cold. The scattered nature of the bodies, found over a wide area and over a long period, further complicated any simple explanation, suggesting a chaotic and desperate flight. The final 4 bodies, Lyudmila Dubinina, Semyon Zolotarov, Alexander Kolovatov, and Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, were discovered in May, hidden beneath 15 feet of snow in a ravine some 75 meters deeper into the forest than the cedar tree. Their injuries were horrific and inexplicable. Thibault-Brignoles had a fractured skull. Kolovatov had multiple severe injuries, including crushed chest wounds. Dubinina and Zolotarov had the most shocking wounds. Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her mouth, and Zolotarov had multiple broken ribs. These injuries were deemed equivalent to those suffered in a major car crash, yet there was no external force, no vehicle, and no signs of a fight. Furthermore, some of their clothing contained elevated levels of radiation. This discovery shattered any notion of simple hypothermia or a minor accident, propelling the case into the realm of the truly terrifying. The official Soviet investigation concluded that the hikers died from a compelling unknown force. This vague and unsatisfying conclusion, combined with the bizarre details of the case, fueled an explosion of theories. Everything from a secret military weapons test explaining the radiation and severe blunt force trauma to an encounter with escaped convicts or local Mansi tribesmen was considered. The idea that an avalanche struck their tent was quickly dismissed due to the tent's location and the nature of the damage. UFOs, Yeti attacks, infrasound-induced panic, and even a paranormal event became popular explanations among a bewildered public desperate for answers. The Russian government's initial secrecy and the lack of transparency only added fuel to the conspiratorial fires. The compelling unknown force theory itself has been intensely scrutinized. The severe internal injuries without external marks on some victims, the missing tongue and eyes of Dubinina, and the sudden, desperate flight from the tent all point to something catastrophic and terrifying. Could a powerful sudden wind shear, a rare weather phenomenon, have created a localized infrasound capable of inducing panic and disorientation, causing the hikers to flee in terror? Or was it a more conventional, yet still devastating phenomenon, like a slab avalanche or a snow slab, that dislodged and buried the tent, forcing them to cut their way out and then suffer injuries from the moving snow? Recent scientific studies have attempted to model how such a phenomenon could have caused the observed injuries. Despite renewed interest in the 21st century and even new investigations by Russian authorities in 2019, no definitive, universally accepted explanation has emerged. While the 2019 investigation concluded the deaths were likely caused by a snow slab avalanche followed by hypothermia, this explanation fails to fully address the internal injuries, the missing tongue and eyes, or the radiation levels, leaving many unconvinced. The Dyatlov Pass Incident remains a deeply unsettling symbol of the unknown, a story whispered in hushed tones about the dark power of nature and the terrifying possibility of encountering something beyond human comprehension. To this day, the tent, the tracks, and the terror of that fateful night continue to haunt. What truly happened to Igor Dyatlov and his 8 companions on khold Syakhl? Was it a natural disaster of unimaginable ferocity, a secret military experiment gone wrong, or something far more sinister and inexplicable that drove them to their gruesome end? The Dyatlov Pass Incident remains a chilling testament to a mystery that refuses to yield its secrets. The Forensic Storyteller wants to hear your most compelling theories on this truly baffling and terrifying case.